Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Omega Metroid podcast. My name is Andy Spiteri, joined as always by Dakota Lasky. Dak, how are you?
Tired, man. Been busy with work lately, and obviously the holidays coming up, and that's more holidays or what have been holidays, kind of, as 2020 comes to an end here. But yeah, I've been tired, been busy, wrapping up things for the end of the year at work. So nice to take a little break from that and talk some games, talk a little Metroid, talk a little games. So yeah, I'm doing all right. How you doing?
I don't know. I'm not doing too bad. It's a busy time. The holidays are always a busy time, and this is a unique holidays. So it's everybody's figuring everything out.
Yeah.
But you know what? I'm doing pretty good. All things considered, even though there was a bunch of stuff happening in the world and nothing was related to Metroid, just like we assumed that it probably wouldn't be. Last week we kind of had a smorgasbord of an episode where we talked about a bunch of different things, and we've almost got a similar topic going on this week. We're going to cover reactions for the Game Awards. We're going to talk about retro. We're going to talk about the Nintendo Indie Direct that happened today, and then we are going to touch base on a wild Metroid theory that I just listened to today. So I wanted Dak's opinion on it. He doesn't know what it is, so I'm going to explain that to him. But before we get there, I guess that we should tell everyone about next week. We have Ryan, the webmaster of Metroid Database, joining the program, and we are going all the way back to the 80s to do a deep dive into the original Metroid for the Nintendo Entertainment System. We're going to talk about everything leading up to the launch and after the launch. We're going to talk about the game itself. We're going to talk about if the game still holds up. We're going to talk about the surprise twist at the end. We're going to talk about why it never got a sequel. It's going to be lots of fun, and I think that it's going to be a really great show to kind of send us along our way to end this 2020 year. So I'm really looking forward to that, and I think that I'm even going to fire it up on my Nintendo Online NES collection and maybe play a little bit of it, because I haven't played it in a long time.
Oh yeah, I haven't played it in very long, so I'm gonna have to boot it up again and think on it and really dig deep into my mind on what I have to say about the original, old as hell, way older than me, original NES Metroid, and what we have to say about that.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I think that that's going to be a good time. We haven't really talked a whole lot about Metroid on this show yet, so I think that it is it's getting its due finally. Two games that we're not talking about at all because they are MIA. Very, very, very popular Metroidvania games. Hollow Knight, Silksong, Axiom Verge 2. I was kind of hoping that we might see them in the Indie Direct today, or at the Game Awards maybe even for Silksong, but both of them continue to be missing in action. So I'm hoping that we get some news on those games soon, and that maybe we can see them in the first half of 2021. I think that would be really a shot in the arm. They're not Metroid games, but they're some of the best Metroidvanias, Axiom Verge and Hollow Knight, of the last decade, I think. So I'm really looking forward to those. What about you, Dak?
I gotta be honest, man. I think we've had like 3 or 4, 5, maybe 6 of these like partner or indie directs throughout this year, in lieu of like actual real directs a lot of the time. And every time I feel like you're super optimistic. Like you're like, oh, we're gonna see some Action Verge, we're gonna see this, and I never have expectations for those indie directs, like ever. It's usually like a bunch of stuff that kind of looks cool, a little quirky, but I never really tried out. And yeah, we didn't see Action Verge, we didn't see Hollow Knight. I am looking forward to both. I think Silksong is getting like to the almost like to that Bayonetta Metroid Prime 4 level, I think, because like that was announced. Well, actually, I guess it hasn't been that long, because I know like Metroid Prime 4 and Bayonetta, that was like announced back in like 2017, and Silksong was announced in early 2019. So we're getting about 2 years on that. So and that's kind of like a bigger franchise, obviously, than Axiom Verge. So definitely some more anticipation regarding that. But it's getting into that like, okay, it's been a while now, like we got to hear something. Personally, I'm not like a diehard Hollow Knight fan. It's a really good game though, and I am looking forward to another one of those. Axiom Verge, not I wouldn't say has as much anticipation. I think it's a game where I'm not looking forward to it, but when it comes out, I think for me. I want to play Silksong, and I hope that comes out soon. But like Axiom Verge, I think is more of like a a smaller kind of package. So when it comes around, it comes around. I'm looking forward to playing it when it does, and I hope that it takes the time it needs to be a really good game. So that's a game that I can maybe wait on a little longer. Whereas Silksong, I was kind of hoping we would hear about a little earlier, a little sooner, and we still haven't. So I hope we get some news on that soon.
And I think that both of them were originally supposed to be fall 2020 games. I mean, who knows how long, the year that was 2020 set everything back. And you know what, I'm okay to wait too, but those are like two of my absolute like most hyped up games. I love both, so I'm really looking forward to both. Just because like there ain't no new Metroid on the horizon, and that's about as close as we are gonna get. So I'm really looking forward to those. Let's talk about the indie direct really quickly here. I thought that there was kind of a fun little couple of games shown there, particularly the one that they led off with, which was a roguelike, kind of looked Metroidvania-esque game called Spelunky and Spelunky 2. So I thought that looked really fun, and it's coming summer 2021. That and this really awesome looking action game called Cyber Shadow were kind of my big takeaways from this indie direct this morning. It was a lot of fun. Lots of games about cats, which is incredible. But yeah, I was impressed with everything that we saw. The Metroid fan to me looked at Spelunky and was like, okay, this looks kind of Metroid-ish. Like, I think I'd be willing to give that a try. And I don't know if you're big into Among Us or not, Dak, but it is coming to Nintendo Switch. So there you go.
I have a couple thoughts. So yeah, Spelunky, Spelunky's like a classic, the original Spelunky. That's like a roguelike classic, I think. So Spelunky 2, that was announced, I think, during the summer of E3. I guess it was just announced for the Switch though. So that looks cool. I'm definitely gonna try that out. Yeah, the Cyber Shadow, that's like the old like Ninja Gaiden looking one, I believe, right?
Yeah, that one's so good.
That one looks cool. I'll probably play it, maybe try it out. If there's like a demo, I'd probably try it out. And the cat games were the cat games were good. I would say those are the big standouts for me. I want to play the cat fighting game. I think that was the biggest standout to me. I don't know, just a lot of the indie games. Just every time I see an indie game in a lot of these showcases, and this might just be me. Our tastes are different, I when I see a lot of indie games in these showcases, a lot of these games are like games I'd play once and never play again. Like they don't seem like they have a lot of replay value. So I'm very, very rarely like excited for indie games because they're like games that I think, oh, they're really cool. They have this, they have this cool little thing about them. They're quirky. They have this cool gimmick, or they look really cool. But is it a game I want to spend money on and actually play a lot? I don't know. Thankfully, there have been games that are few and far between that have surprised me. And maybe if I gave these games more of a shot, I would be surprised. So I would like to try out Cyber Shadow. That's something that I'll probably end up getting just because, that looks cool. You're anticipating it, and I know you have a good taste in games. So I feel like I should give it a shot. But I want to play the cat-related games. I'm excited for those. Maybe less so Calico.
You and me, Cat Brawler.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. I want to play that. And then Among Us. I love Among Us. I've been playing Among Us since the summer, like when it got big, when a bunch of, like the Twitch streamers were playing it, towards like the end of the summer into the fall. And I've been, hooked on it, playing with my friends a lot. It's definitely simmered down a little bit for me, and I'm not going to get it on the Switch because I already have it on PC, so there's no point in buying it for the Switch too.
Right.
And there's going to be crossplay, so I can just play with my friends who have it on the Switch. So we'll be able to play. Maybe we'll get together, a little Omega Metroid Among Us group sesh and play it.
I'd be down for that.
Among Us is a lot of fun, man. I love Among Us. It's so fun. One of my favorite games of the year. Obviously, it's not a completely unique concept for anyone who knows like what the thing is or something like that. But for a game, it's a lot of fun, and it's been a really solid thing to get together with friends and have some good moments together. I definitely had a lot of good moments this year playing Among Us, so I'm happy that it's coming to the Switch. It looks awesome. I definitely recommend it to everybody to play it. Even if you don't have like a good group to play with, you can find a group, or I just go onto like public servers and try to get imposter and kill people. So yeah, great game. Looking forward to that. And yeah, the cat games from the Indie Direct were pretty cool too.
There was another kind of Among Us knockoff game called.
Oh yeah,
it was like Gnosia.
Yeah, it's like a light novel Among Us. And I was like, oh wow.
Yeah, yeah. I saw that and I was like, oh, this is like an Among Us knockoff. It's too bad we can't just get the actual thing. And then lo and behold, like 5 minutes later, the actual thing shows up. I think
Mhm.
it's funny that you said that about indie games, though. And yeah, of course, we have different tastes. Where I love just buying like a cheaper indie game, playing it once. I'll replay it in like 3 years when I forgot everything about it. That's my cup of tea, actually. I like that a lot. But there was a lot of good stuff there to be had for sure. A lot of like just like smaller, more charming games, which I think the indie directs are really good at. Um, so let's focus over and talk about the Game Awards that
Mhm.
took place on Thursday of
No
last week.
Metroid.
No
Oh,
Metroid.
no Metroid.
Too bad. And they did show Master Chief in Fortnite,
They did show
but
Master
no
Chief in
Metroid.
Fortnite. Brie Larson, I believe, did do some kind of announcement, though I don't remember what she was there for. I kind of forget. Do you remember what she was there for?
I think that she was there for Best Performance Award. I could be wrong. I could be wrong,
I can't.
but
I
she didn't
honestly
do
can't
anything
remember.
Metroid.
Yeah, she didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Well, then I definitely didn't expect that. I
No.
was, Stephen A. Smith given the esports award. I thought was really funny because Stephen A. Smith, I think, is hilarious, and he's never mentioned anything like game related, or has ever talked about video games like ever in his career, really. So to have him there talking about esports of all things, which like I don't even think he has discussed it at length at all on any of his
I
programs.
don't think he knows what esports
Yeah,
is.
I'm sure he knows what it is because he works for ESPN and they've had like esports stuff. So like I'm sure he knows what it is, right?
Uh,
And knows what I'm certain he knows what it is. But to actually have any kind of involvement in it, obviously he doesn't. But I thought it was funny,
right.
because, for multiple reasons. Anyway, yeah, we didn't get anything Metro related. We didn't get Samus in Fortnite either. Despite it being they're doing like this hunters kind of season thing, and that's why Master Chief was added, even though he's not really a bounty hunter or any kind of hunter of any sort. But Samus is. She didn't get added, so no Metroid
I
news.
believe that they said bounty hunters, and then they included a couple people from The Walking Dead, which I cannot believe is still a show. That show is still running.
Yeah, well, they have The Walking Dead, and then they have like the Fear of the Walking Dead, and the comics are still going. Yeah, it's still zombies are still going strong, man. I saw a couple games. Well, first of all,
Oh man.
Back for Blood that got announced or shown off at the Game Awards. That's a zombie game, and that looks hype because that's a Left 4 Dead kind of game, and I really like Left 4 Dead. And I know people are sick of zombie shooters by now, but Left 4 Dead gets a pass for me because that's really cool and really fun. But yeah, we didn't get anything. Like we didn't get any Metroid Prime 4, which I guess I wasn't expecting
That's to be
at all.
expected.
I mean,
Yeah.
Nintendo only showed off Sephiroth, which was really cool though. I kind of wish that ended the show. It was a great way to
Yeah,
start
I have
the
a funny
show,
story.
but
So
awesome. Love that.
I was covering the Game Awards for Zelda Dungeon because we were thinking that maybe there's going to be some Age of Calamity DLC news or something like that. And I show up and I'm like, okay, guys, I'm going to be 5 minutes late. And the best part of the entire show happened immediately in the first like minute of the show. So let's talk about it. I thought that was so awesome to see Sephiroth show up in Smash because I mean, even though you've got Cloud already in the game, I think you could make the case that like Sephiroth is almost as iconic of a character as Cloud Strife is, and man, it just like it feels complete now to have both of them in, and like it makes me relive my old GameFAQs.com summer contest like fantasies with like Link and Cloud and Sephiroth and Samus and Sonic. Like what a roster
Yeah, right.
that they've amassed, and man, what an entrance! Like he just straight up stabbed Mario through the face.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of references to like Advent Children, like the movie and all of that. I think a lot of the scenes, like in the actual like choreography of the fight, like is a direct like reference to that, to like the movie and
They
all
were
that.
almost scene for scene.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that was yeah exactly. So yeah, it was awesome, super cool. Totally unexpected, I think, because I personally, I think a lot of people didn't expect another Final Fantasy character. Like just to get Cloud alone, I thought was crazy, and of course was at the time, and really blew things up. But to get also Sephiroth, also there wasn't like leaked or anything. Like I didn't hear any discussion or leaked discussion prior to like, or like I didn't have Sephiroth at all on my radar. So to have
Nope.
him show up, he looks sick. Like the trailer was awesome, but like gameplay wise, he looks really cool too. Definitely got to give him a try. And yeah, I mean, Ultimate has a roster that, if you told someone this was the roster 10, 15 years ago, you'd be like, well, yeah, I saw this roster. It was on GameFAQs and someone photoshopped it and it has like 90 people on it. And yeah, I've seen that roster
Yeah.
before. Well, it actually exists now. So yeah, that was really cool and was the extent of Nintendo's showing for the show, which I think was fine. Like they pretty much like nailed it. Like put Sephiroth in Smash. I mean, come on. Like, Mario almost killed. Ridley actually did it though, but
He
Sephiroth.
did it first.
Ridley, well, Mario didn't get killed. Ridley apparently did kill Mario, as far as we know. So I guess not because he shows
Do
up
you
in
remember?
this. But yeah,
Do you remember when Luigi got killed too by Simon Belmont or by Dracula or
he gets
whoever
killed
it
by
was? He just like
Dracula.
straight
Yeah,
up got murdered. Yeah.
yeah, that does happen. But Luigi does go into he becomes a ghost and then not a ghost a lot in his own game. So I'd like to think that like Luigi can die, but he doesn't really die. Like he's like immortal. He can always come back somehow. But yeah, I guess expecting any kind of real non-Smash news from Nintendo or like big stuff. You said Age of Calamity. I was actually expecting to see something for Breath of the Wild 2 potentially. That would have been really cool to kind of
Oh
end
no
the year
way.
with. To have like just something like a little bit of something that would have been so cool. I think Age of Calamity, like it's out now. I don't think they would have done a big DLC announcement at the Game Awards. But and Breath of the Wild would have been really cool. I kind of was hoping for that. We didn't get that either.
I think that Breath of the Wild 2 is going to be like its own presentation. Like that game is so like mythical now, and it's kind of like Metroid Prime 4, where it's like we know that they exist, but we don't know anything about them other than like the smallest of peaks. That I think that probably at this point, both Prime 4 and Breath of the Wild 2 are going to be like their own kind of presentations or something along those lines. So not it would be like if E3 took place in 2021, which maybe it will, maybe it won't, but it would be the equivalent of that, where like Nintendo would show it off at one of their own kind of events. But yeah, there wasn't a whole lot for Nintendo at the Game Awards. There was Sephiroth and Ghosts and Goblins or Ghouls
Oh
and
yeah,
Goblins looked pretty fun for the old schoolers out there.
yeah. I don't know how many like the what audience that has anymore. I kind of looked at the game and I was like, oh geez, like still making these, huh? Like I don't know. It's. I'm not probably gonna play it, but I'm sure there are some people out there that were super excited for Ghosts and Goblins or Ghouls and Goblins or whatever it is. I hate to sound dismissive like
I'm
that,
sure they're out there.
but I'm sure they're out there. Yeah.
I did have fun with that game back on what was it, the SNES, but it was like literally the hardest game I've ever played, and I was young at the time, but still it was so hard that like I could not get to the end of like the first scrolling screen, so I was like, nope, not for me. So I almost want to play it just to see if I've improved in any capacity since my youth. I had go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I've actually never even played a Ghosts and Goblins game,
Oh god.
but I the only exposure I really have to it is Marvel vs. Capcom 3. Arthur is in Marvel vs. Capcom, and he's all right. He's a pretty cool character. That's my only exposure to Ghosts and Goblins is Arthur in Marvel. So
Well, shout out to Arthur. He was. I remember him showing up in like his underwear or something in that game.
mm-hmm.
I had two moments that made me pop during the Game Awards, big time. I was very, very, very excited for. I would say that these were on the same level for me as Sephiroth. The first was when we had that trailer again, like right in the opening 5 minutes of the show, where the camera was going absolutely wild. It was in first person. It was climbing up this skyscraper, but then it goes out and it zooms out on the Datadyne logo, and I was just like fist pumping. And then we got the reveal of a new Perfect Dark, and I love Perfect Dark on the N64. It was one of my favorite games ever. I never played the silly sequel on the 360, but man, I thought that this trailer looked really, really good, and I'm excited to get me some Perfect Dark coming back. It's been too long.
I gotta be honest, I missed this one. I looked away. I was still talking about Sephiroth to people, So when I came back, I only knew that there was a new Perfect Dark because I saw you tweet about it. I didn't even see it. Sounds cool though. I'm excited. Perfect Dark is a really solid N64 game. I also played the sequel very, very briefly, I think, like the split screen multiplayer. That's about it. So yeah, new Perfect Dark sounds just I say this is a good time to have a new Perfect Dark. Why not?
And why not? And like, it's pretty. It's not like a AAA name or whatever, but I feel like it's got some name value. I never understood why they stopped making Perfect Dark games. Like, I didn't know that Zero was like that bad where it killed the franchise, but maybe it was because I never played it. The other thing, speaking of bad games that killed the franchise, the other thing that made me pop big time was the next Mass Effect. I absolutely love Mass Effect. It's one of my favorite video game series, like ever. Maybe like top five in with Zelda and Metroid.
Hmm.
So I think that I think that there's a lot that Metroid can take from Mass Effect and kind of implement in its own games. You know, we talked about this a couple weeks ago where both of us kind of said like, no, we don't want Metroid to take everything from Mass Effect and become, you know, exactly the same type of game. But Mass Effect really does offer a lot of inspiration for like stuff that I think a Metroid game could use and could implement going forward. So I'm really excited to see Mass Effect come back. Big fan of the series, and it was kind of in question after Mass Effect Andromeda, which I won't die on this hill, but I will say that I think that Andromeda is a perfectly fine game, not as bad as people think.
Well, I do know that Andromeda is going to be free on the Epic Games Store later this month, so I'm going to download it and give it a whirl because it's the only Mass Effect that I haven't played, and it is also the only Mass Effect game that I've watched a lot of YouTube videos about because I watched all the YouTube videos about how bad the animations were and other stuff about the game, which gave me a
Right.
hearty laugh and made me very happy watching those videos. But I never actually gave the game a try, which is unfair of me. So I should do that. I should give it a try. I'm sure it's not going to be, no Mass Effect 3 or whatever, but or Mass Effect 2 or Mass Effect 1, which are, I mean, all three of them are
Yeah,
really
of
good games,
course.
So, um, but yes, the new Mass Effect I thought was hype. I did catch that, and the trailer doesn't really show you anything though. And I'm not like a super like huge Mass Effect fan where like I would recognize anybody necessarily other than like the main people. So I didn't recognize who the character was. I'm not sure if we were supposed to. Um, but I thought it was cool. New Mass Effect is hype. Glad that Andromeda didn't, destroy this franchise. Not that I ever thought it would. Mass Effect was too big, I think, for any one game to really do that. So, and Andromeda, as far as I know, Andromeda did get kind of fixed and patched over time anyway. So eventually, it kind of became like a pretty decent game.
It did.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so it's not even like Other M, which continues to be poopy dumpster fire and never got patched to be fixed. But to be fair, the only patch you could actually fix with Other M, to implement would be to delete the software from your console. That's the only patch that would work. So, or any your save file, or make sure that this doesn't work. So, understandably, Andromeda probably came out on the other side of it's like patching a little better, and I'm gonna give it a try. New Mass Effect looks cool. Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I'm glad I caught that trailer because that was hype news.
I can't wait till we play Other M for our 1 year anniversary on the Omega Metroid podcast. I will say, and I want to spend just like a second talking about this before we finally get to some Metro news here. But I will say that, like, you mentioned that Andromeda was kind of buggy when it launched. There was definitely some goofy bugs and stuff like that, but like you compare and contrast that versus like the launch of Cyberpunk, which is basically unplayable on the PS4 and Xbox One, which is kind of a bummer because I was gonna pick it up for Christmas this year because I'm a peasant. I haven't upgraded yet, and I don't have like a super expensive PC. So you know what? I was like, cool. I'm gonna get it on my PlayStation, and man, that game launching in the state that it did is just like the video game industry at its worst. I feel like what a schmoz that was compared to that. Andromeda is like a AAA title.
Oh, for sure. Though it is funny that I mean, I guess like Andromeda now, in retrospect, Andromeda's issues almost feel like insignificant. Like
Right.
because really it came down to like like facial animation. Like, I mean, the problems with Cyberpunk go way beyond like some textures and facial animations being off, And not that that's the only problem with Andromeda, but I remember that being a big talking point. But yeah, Cyberpunk has been a mess. I'm so glad that not that I was never honestly super excited to really get into like Cyberpunk. It was just I never really got into the hype train. I was just like, all right, this will come out. I'll play it when it's out, and it came out, but I didn't get it because I heard a lot of people and I watched people like playing it, and I'm like, not only does it not look like I need it immediately, but there have been issues with the game. Even on PC, I've heard some issues too, and that is not just like a PS4 or an Xbox One issue. So I'm waiting. Apparently that they're going to be patching the game in January and February. Maybe the price will come down by then, or someone will have it on sale. But if not, I'm probably going to wait until those patches. So. I'm honestly like not particularly like trying to dive into Cyberpunk. It looks cool, but it's kind of just like a loot shooter I've seen, and I've played those before. The gunplay doesn't look like super crazy. It looks like a pretty like cinematic and fun ride though. I want to play it, but it is a shame like the state of that it came out in, especially considering it was already delayed multiple times and people wanted the game to come out like just to release it, and then they did, and it's a mess. And now they're trying to get like refunds. That's been an issue. It's a whole mess. And honestly, with a game like this that's been in development for like what? It's like I feel like this game got announced in like 2013 or something like that. Yeah, like to have a clean release 7-8 years later, I feel like never happens. And this is another example of that. So I'm not surprised. Cyberpunk kind of it just the expectations are always going to grow, and it's never going to like meet those expectations after like 7 or 8 years. Like I feel like nothing ever really has. So. We'll see how that goes. I've been interested in like playing it more, and honestly, some of the bugs in the game almost make me want to get it early just to like experience it for that way. But I feel like the funny moments I see on Twitter get outweighed by like the tons of frustrating moments that might happen.
And like the game crashing.
Exactly. Yeah, that make it not worth it. So we'll see with that. But yeah, it's been a hell of a mess.
Yeah, I'm really disappointed that like that whole aesthetic is right up my alley. I mean, you know me, like I'm a big Blade Runner kind of sci-fi guy, and like that was like so cool. That was like, yeah, this is gonna be sweet. And God, what a mess! Like I'm legitimately wondering, like, what would have been more embarrassing, delaying the game again for another couple months to maybe let's say April 2021, or releasing it as they did. And honestly, I think that delaying the game would have been embarrassing, but it wouldn't have been like a catastrophe like this, or even just delaying the PS4 and Xbox One versions.
Well, I was gonna say, I honestly think they should have just not released it on the PS4 and Xbox One at all. I'm surprised. I mean, I'm not surprised that they did because obviously they want to get as many people to buy it as possible, but I feel like that would be if like the Microsoft or Sony, someone would have tried to have like convinced them like make it an exclusive, like make it so that way people have to buy a new console to play this game, or they have to buy a PC, to play this game, whatever it is.
That would have been so grimy though. That you've been developing this game for years and years and years, and then now it's almost like a bait and switch where it's like, just kidding, you don't get this game unless you spend also an extra $500.
I mean,
bucks. That would have been greasy.
You're not wrong there either, but I'm also looking at like Halo Infinite. I feel like it's coming into the same issues where it was like originally being developed for like Xbox One. And whatever, and now it has to be developed for like to work on both Xbox One and Xbox Series X and PC and all that. And part of me is just like, just why even release it on the Xbox One? Like, just make it so it works on the Xbox One X and PC. Like, make it so people have to buy the new Xbox to play the new Halo. Like, what's so hard about that? I don't have to do it. I already have a PC, so it doesn't bother me. But I would be playing the game by now, possibly, if not for the fact that it's also being made to work for these older consoles. And I feel like this has happened before where games have been like delayed or they've been marred by technical issues because they've tried to gap that generation. They tried to cross the generational gap and work on both sides, and it's such a like an issue a lot of the time, or it causes delays or whatever it is. I mean, I feel like that even happened with Breath of the Wild, right? Like that, it got delayed. I feel like because of that kind of stuff. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I feel like it's always an issue.
I mean, yeah, it got delayed, but it also released flawlessly on both consoles.
That's true. So at least for the very least, it came out and it was fine. That's true. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. I feel like always trying to like do the multiple generations, the multiple consoles is I understand why they do it economically and financially, but causes so many issues when you're trying to develop a game of such a huge scale like Cyberpunk across multiple console generations. Seems like quite an undertaking.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like I wouldn't let him off the hook
No, I'm
because
not
they
letting
knew
him
what
off
they
the
were
hook for
getting
sure.
into.
Yeah, yeah, definitely
Yeah,
not.
but I understand it's challenging, especially this year. But God, what a
It's
mess!
like
What a mess.
yeah, yeah. I it's thankfully don't have to worry about that with Metroid games because sometimes they don't even come out for a generation, so they don't have to worry
Thank
about
God.
that. Yeah.
All right, let's finally get to some Metroid here. We've been going on for about half an hour here, but I recently discovered about 2 months ago. I'm like ancient when it comes to exploring YouTube, but I recently discovered the film theorists and the game theorists hosted by MatPat, and they have like millions, like tens of millions of subscribers. But I'm just like old school, and I don't really go on YouTube that much except to listen to music. But so I finally stumbled my way across, and I was listening to this Metroid theory, and it really kind of piqued my interest, and I wanted your opinion on it. So I'm going to explain it to you and explain it to our listeners. And I want your reaction, and I want our listeners' reaction. Tweet at us at Omega Metroid Pod. Let us know if you think that this is possible or even plausible. So here we go. Shout out again to the game theorists. They are over on YouTube at the game theorists. This video has 4.5 million views, so they're doing some good things for Metroid here. This theory is all about how the animals of Metroid are the biggest threat to the entire galaxy. So let me set the stage here.
Wait. What animals?
Wait, I'll set the stage. I'll set the stage.
Okay.
So during the events of Super Metroid, you meet the Etecoons and Dachora, and they teach you how to wall jump and shine spark and all these other good things. They're very intelligent creatures, and in the Metroid speedrunning community, of course, we know that there is what is described as like basically like a last minute fundraiser almost when people are speedrunning Super Metroid to either kill the animals or save the animals.
Yeah.
For anyone that doesn't know, when you're on the way, to your ship at the end of Super Metroid, you can take a little bit of a detour in Criteria and go and blast a wall for the Etecoons and Dachora to escape out of, and if you do, then their ship flies off into the distance at the end of Super Metroid. So it's a really big thing in the speedrunning community because there's literally no benefit and it costs you time when you are doing that. So yeah, man, it's a big thing. Kill the animals or save the animals, and it raises like hundreds of thousands of dollars at things like Games Done Quick. So it's pretty incredible. So that's kind of the whole crux for this theory. This theory says that you should absolutely kill the animals, and if you do, that saves the galaxy. So to further kind of set the table here, we need to have a few pieces of information out in the clear and be known. So the biggest threat to the galaxy is not the Metroids, it's not the space pirates, it's the X, which we meet in Metroid Fusion. Of course, these are parasites. They can clone and absorb memories, and they kill the original host, and they spread like a virus. So, not unlike 2020 almost. So these are the big bads of the Metroid universe, but maybe the other big bad is the Chozo, because they created the Metroids to basically prey and kill on the X-Parasite, but then didn't tell anybody that that was their true purpose. So they've created these Metroids, they have eliminated the X population on SR388, but nobody really knows this about the Metroids, and according to Metroid Wiki, the Chozo specifically don't tell the Galactic Federation for fear that people will use the Metroids as weapons, even though that's exactly what happens anyways. So, fast forward to the events of Metroid Fusion. Since the Etecoons and Dachora are on the ship, we can infer that saving them in Super Metroid is the canon response, and it's canon. They've survived, they've made it off the planet, we decided to be good guys and get them out of here. So the entire crux of this theory about why the X are evil, or why the animals are evil, is because they are not in fact animals and never were. They have always been X, and they save Samus at the end of the game, basically to avoid their own extermination and to go and populate other planets. So there's some anecdotal evidence here, Dak, but just on the basis, what do you think of this so far?
So you're saying that these things are just X parasites that are mimicking, right, to hide the fact that they're X, so Samus doesn't absorb them or kill them, right? And that.
That's correct. Yes.
Uh. Okay.
And that they have always been X, even in Super Metroid.
Okay. All right. That's interesting. See. All right. I think on the surface, my immediate reaction to it is it's an interesting theory. I am wondering how, like, because an X mimic, right, doesn't look exactly like it's the thing that it's copying, right? Like it has like
Right.
a little bit of a difference, right? But as far as we know, they look like the animals that they're. Let's say they were X parasites, right? They look exactly like the. As far as we know, right? Well, actually, I guess we don't. Do we see any other ones that wouldn't that we can
Nope.
confirm? Okay, so we don't actually know what the true species would look like if we are to assume that these are X parasites because we don't have an example of these creatures and knowing that they aren't X parasites, right? Like we haven't dissected like another one, right? Or no one has.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that could be possible. I'm trying to think of like any other thing. Like what other thing would be a giveaway other than okay, these things look. I mean, a lot of the X mimics in Fusion, not only do they look different, but they look really corrupted and like not.
Grotesque.
Yeah, right. And
Yeah.
these things don't look really grotesque. They look like nice and cute and cuddly and all of that. So that would be my first thing: is if these were X parasites, wouldn't they look a little more like grotesque looking and like scary and dangerous? Because I feel like almost every X mimic is, but maybe these ones are just really, really advanced ones or good ones. So, um, I will let you continue. I'm interested, though I don't think it's the case. I'm interested. I'd like to hear more.
I was the exact same mind frame. I was like, no way, these don't look X enough, right? Because like everything looks kind of messed up. Like Ridley looks very different. Everybody looks different when they're infected by the X. But MatPat did provide some anecdotal evidence here that makes somewhat of a more compelling case. So first of all, you nailed it. We've never seen any other Etecoons or Dachora anywhere other than in Metroid Fusion or in Super Metroid. So, if they were infected by the X all along, then we wouldn't know any better because we've never seen them. The other thing, or the other reason that he points to, particularly in Dachora's case, is that they know abilities that a regular animal probably shouldn't. In that case, the shine spark, and maybe to a lesser extent the wall jump, because I think that that's kind of feasible that the Etecoons might know how to wall jump. But the shine spark is a skill that maybe an animal like that wouldn't necessarily know. But the dead giveaway is that they should definitely not know how to pilot a ship, which they do at the end of Metroid Fusion. So the theory there is that they have absorbed the memories and knowledge of other galactic pilots or fighters, and they are living in the animal bodies.
Wait. What do you mean that they pilot the ship at the end of Fusion? They don't pilot the ship at the end of Fusion.
They pilot the ship at the end of Fusion. They activate the AI.
Okay, but that's not piloting the ship. That's like
Yeah, but
that's not like you're by pilot. Okay, so what you just said is they have the knowledge of previous human pilots, but that's not necessarily true because they're not piloting the ship. If they might have turned on the AI, which I also don't think is true. I'm pretty sure that the Adam's AI is continually connected to the ship, as far as I know. It's Adam who is controlling the ship, the Adam AI, and brings it in, and the animals are just on the ship screwing around. Sorry, in front of the camera, right? I don't think that it's ever, as far as I remember, it's never like actually shown that they're.
You're wrong. You were wrong. Adam specifically says that he had some help
Oh
getting their
yeah, you're
bot.
right. He does say something about that, doesn't he? Doesn't he say like, "Oh yeah, how is that possible?" And then it shows them on. Okay, so okay, fine. That does happen, but they're not. I don't think they're piloting the ship. Like they could have easily just turned on an autopilot, right? Like they could have easily just been like mashing buttons on the dashboard or jumping around, screwing around in the cockpit and accidentally turned on autopilot, right? Like, and even if they didn't, let's say they weren't jumping around. Let's say somehow it hit a button and knew that it was the autopilot. It didn't. I don't think it was like literally pulled out like the handles and started like using a joystick or something and piloted the ship, right? To do I
Well,
it,
we don't know. We don't know.
so I don't know. We don't know, but okay, okay, okay.
Hold on. Let's keep going.
I'll
Let's
give
keep
you
going.
that.
Let's keep going. Okay, so he then goes on to say that the Etecoons and Dachora were the only organisms on the entire ship that were not eliminated or killed by the X parasites, and there's no real reason other than Adam theorizes that maybe he thinks that the X might not have seen them as a threat, but obviously a lot of these scientists aren't necessarily threats either. So it doesn't make sense why they wouldn't have just absorbed him anyways, especially if they have the skills of like shine sparking. So
Yeah, but
that's another little piece.
the scientists get absorbed for their knowledge, though. It's not like they're a threat.
Right, right.
So if the okay, let me try to unpack this. So okay, first of all, let's go back to the speed booster thing or the shine sparker thing because I didn't answer that. You said that you think the wall jump that's likely for them to know. I agree.
I think that's feasible. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. I agree with that. That's like a thing anyone could really do, or like any animal or a lot of animals, right? Whatever. The shine spark thing. Okay. But we know that there are a lot of organisms in like the Metroid universe that have like weird, unique kind of powers, right? Like, so I don't think it's like necessarily out of the question that this could be something an animal or some kind of like alien animal species would have access to, right? I mean, if we
Right.
accept that there are other organisms that exist outside of, let's say, like phase and corruption, right? Like that also have some really crazy powers that exist naturally. I think the Etecoons or whatever having a similar kind of power is not necessarily a huge reach. So then, okay, piloting the ship, whether or not they did that, okay, maybe they just turned on the autopilot. Maybe they did somehow figure out how to pilot it. But does that necessarily prove that they have the knowledge of previous pilots that were absorbed or something? No. And then the third thing was they weren't attacked on the ship and they survived. Fair. That is true. I would think, okay, they also survived the events of Super Metroid without getting attacked by any Metroids or other crazy things, and they were able to survive that. So maybe they're just really adaptable and survivalist animals, right? I mean, if they survived Super Metroid, I don't think it's unfeasible that they somehow escaped the X and all of that through the events of Metroid Fusion.
All right. So there's a couple more little pieces of evidence that they suggest for this theory. The BSL station, and this one is kind of weak, I think, but this is one of the ones that they suggested. The BSL station seemed like kind of a random target for this X outbreak to happen at, but coincidentally, it was one of the ones. It was a station that the Dachoras and the Etecoons were already at. Now, I will say that this is probably the weakest bit of evidence to me because you can kind of infer that the X outbreak happens because the Metroids are there and they're trying to eliminate their natural prey or their natural predator rather. But it's a fact. There is an outbreak at this random space station and the animals are there. What say you?
Well, wait. It's not really random though. It's not like the X just like all of a sudden show up and like okay, like the X haven't been on or the Metroids haven't been on SR388 since the events of Metroid 2. So they're more prolific and show up more often when they return. Samus returns with the scientists, right? Samus gets infected, goes back to the station, crashes into the asteroid belt, and her suit pieces are recovered into the ship, which are then put into the quarantine zone. And the X in the quarantine zone, the X are able to like multiply or grow into like using Samus's DNA, create the SAX, and then blast out. From there, maybe the X then decide to take out the Metroids because they're their natural enemy. But it's not like it randomly happens. I don't like it. It all makes sense. Why it not like coincidence, but like the string of events like A to B to C makes sense how the outbreak happens. So I I'm not sure where you were there getting the randomness of this, or how it ties into the Etecoons.
I'm just telling you the evidence as it presented itself here.
Okay,
I
yeah.
think that one is a little bit weak,
I'm a little
but
confused on that one. Yeah, I'm not sure what that one's trying to say.
so I'll move on to the last two pieces of little anecdotal evidence here, and I loved this one. This seems like a stretch, but here we go. The theory suggests that the Etecoons and Dachora are not native to the planet Zebes, and in fact, they were piloting another ship on their way from going planet to planet on the wiki, the Metroid wiki, and on the Metroid wiki, it says something about X parasites. If they ever had the ability to fly a spaceship, they would travel planet to planet like a plague. So the theory goes is that that's precisely what the Etecoons and the Dachora were doing, was traveling from planet to planet on a spaceship. And that spaceship is the wrecked ship in Super Metroid, and that is where they run to at the end of the game, and that is the ship that they escape on because we powered it up after we defeated Fantoon earlier in Super Metroid, and that is how they make their way to the BSL.
See, this I like. This is a good. This I like this point. This
I
makes
kind
for
of like it
actual good
too.
story. See, I don't know if I necessarily buy them being ex parasites, but I do think that it's interesting. It would be a cool idea if these Etecoons, right, like the and whatever's are actually like spacefaring kind of aliens, but they are, they're also these like kind of funny, like silly little animals, right? But at the same time, they're also like smart enough to be able to pilot a ship and travel, and all of that potentially. Like maybe we just, they're just, they don't speak a language we can understand, right?
Right.
And that would like make sense. Like, okay, if that's the case, then yeah, maybe they could have piloted the ship in Fusion. That idea I think is really interesting. It'd be really cool. Like if these little guys are just like little space like adventurers, right? That's interesting. I don't think that necessarily means that they're ex parasites though, because number one, I really think it's the case that the X can probably survive in a vacuum. So I don't think that they would need to be like an organism that would have to pilot a ship, right? Like, and also if they did need to do that and they do or whatever, why would they be like these little aliens or animals, right? Like, why wouldn't they just be a person, like a human, and look like a normal pilot and just pilot around as a regular human and not be like these weird animals that might get shot because they're like a suspect potential enemy, dangerous animal, right? Or
Well,
might
because
not get saved by
they're so
Samus,
unassuming.
right? But I get that, but um, it just seems like it's such like a inconvenient or like out of the way kind of way to accomplish a goal. And I also feel like they also like X parasites are, because they're so like they were able to exist in like really cold temperatures and all of that. I do feel like they wouldn't need to do this. Like X parasites could probably exist in a vacuum, which is why I also think that future Metroid games will probably still have the X parasites, because I think it's pretty likely that they survived the destruction of SR388, and the BSL, because I think they could exist in a vacuum and they would survive that kind of stuff after a planet's been destroyed. So then they probably wouldn't need the ship. But I love the idea of these little guys being like these like adventurers that piloted a ship and stowed away and are trying to like, they have their own little adventure going on. Does that make them X parasites? No, but that's like the most. I think that's the most interesting. Like when you tie it into the fusion like potential like piloting the ship thing, whatever, it makes this the most interesting. Wow, that might have swung me a little bit, that part when you tie it together a little bit. Yeah, I
That's a
like that.
spin-off game that I would love to play, by the way.
Yeah, I
That'd
agree.
be
I would
awesome.
play that. Yeah.
Okay, so there's two more kind of anecdotal pieces of
There's
evidence here.
more. Okay.
There's more.
Okay.
There's more. So the last, well, I guess the last major piece of evidence before we get to the $1 million question is that Metroid Fusion literally ends on a shot of these two animals. Now, Dak, you and I kind of downplayed them a little bit in our Metroid 5 pitches way back when, but maybe that was deliberate that it ends on that shot of these two animals. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe
Hmm.
it's just kind of happened, but it does seem strange to end on that note, at least to me. So I, you know what? It's a small little thing, but okay.
Mm. Yeah, that one I'm not so sold on. I mean, having like that image to like end the story on like a nice note, right? Like you won, like you congratulations, you beat the game, you defeated the bad guys. Here's like a nice like image of these cute little animals to fade off on. Um, no, that storytelling wise and just imagery, like visually, I think makes sense. I don't know if I would tie that to like giving them some kind of importance. Not only that, but I know for a fact that they haven't been planning any post-fusion story stuff. So I know that they weren't doing that. There's no way that they were like planning down the road. Oh yeah, like this is going to have some kind of importance in the next game that we haven't made yet since 20 years. Right? Like it's been almost 20 years since that game and there has been no follow through. So I really doubt that they were like planting this image to be like, "Oh, in the next game, wait until you see what happens with these two." Like wink wink, or like, a little bit of foreshadowing that you don't realize it's like foreshadowing until later. I No, I don't. I think especially it's a Nintendo game, but it's a video game. You won the game, you beat it. Finally, the story is over. You defeated the bad guy. Samus maybe might not be able to rest at the moment, but you as the player can. And the story, at least for the moment, is over. And you get that image because it's a nice, image to sign off on. So I wouldn't give points to that one. No.
So the last piece of evidence that the theory gives, and I was glad that it did, because this was all just like, this was the question I asked immediately at the very start of this, and thankfully they circled back and answered it, is why would the X-Parasites save Samus? If they had the ability to just let her blow up on the BSL, why would they activate the AI? Why would they do all that, right? The answer is actually like fairly obvious, and I thought that it was a good explanation. They allow Samus to live because Samus eradicates Metroids and is the only person that eradicates Metroids. Even though Samus was eradicating the X-Parasite as well, you've really never seen anybody else go head to head with a Metroid and walk away. I mean, she literally wiped out the entire Metroid population on SR 388, and that is what allowed the X to repopulate and gain a foothold in the ecosystem there. She eliminated the Metroids in Talon 4. She eliminated the Omega Metroid on the BSL. Like, Samus gets rid of Metroids, and Metroids are, as we know, the natural predator of the X-Parasite, and the X-Parasite really is defenseless against Metroids. So it does make sense that they would keep her alive, kind of the enemy of my enemy is my friend mentality here. So I liked that little wrinkle in the whole theory. Look, do I think that the animals are evil? Not necessarily, but I really enjoyed this theory and looking at it from a different perspective. And it did make sense to me when you put it in that, like, okay, well, yeah, that makes sense that they didn't just let Samus blow up to smithereens.
See, it sounds good if it went that way, right? Like how you described all that, like sounds really cool. It sounds really good, but it didn't actually happen that way because if the X were to be taking into account that Samus destroys Metroids overall, right? Like even before they got to the BSL, keeping in mind that Samus, eradicated all the Metroids, fights Metroids all the time, why would the SAX be hunting or going after Samus the whole time on Fusion, right? Like, why wouldn't the SAX, why would it ever try to kill Samus? Because you can die to it. So why would it ever try to kill Samus if that's the case? What I really think is, yeah, that part of it I don't think works, because if that were the case, then the SAX would never be a threat the entirety of the ship. The only reason Samus ends up absorbing the SAX in the end anyway is because it ends up just ignoring Samus and goes after the biggest Metroid related threat on the ship at the time, which is the Omega Metroid. So it just so happens that it has a losing matchup against Omega Metroids, fights it, loses, and Samus is like, oh well, it's free real estate, and takes, absorbs the SAX. So I don't know if that works necessarily. It sounds good. That would make sense. That would be really interesting if throughout the game the SAX would like get really close to killing you or like chase you down, but then didn't. But you were kind of like forced into a situation where you didn't really have a choice. It would kill you if it could, but it didn't. And then at the end, that stuff kind of happened. Then I would be like, okay, that's interesting. Like maybe the X really don't want Samus actually dead because they realize its value or her value.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that sounds really cool, but that's not supported by the game, because otherwise the X and the SAX wouldn't be, or anything infected by the X wouldn't be attacking Samus, which is literally what happens throughout every second of the game. So interesting theory.
That's a great point.
And also I feel like that would give away the Etecoons a little bit too, I think, if they were for some reason like helping, like the SAX was helping Samus too. I feel like that would be kind of a giveaway.
That's a great point. I didn't consider that. But what if maybe the animals had already piloted her ship out of there and only came back when they saw the SAX was defeated? Because at that point, It's pretty clear that like none of the SAX are going to make it off that ship. And while they would prefer to have the SAX, which they control, they save Samus for an opportunity to clone her at a later date. I don't know. That's a good point, and I'm just making up some excuses here, but I don't know. I enjoyed this. There's a lot of circumstantial evidence, not necessarily a lot of hard evidence that you can really dig your feet into, but I had a really good time kind of dissecting that, and I discovered that there are more than a couple Metroid theories on there, so I think that we'll do this again, have like a theory block one episode. So yeah, this was fun.
Yeah, I was gonna say I've never been someone who really like digs into like game theories, and like that. But I thought that was a lot more interesting than I was expecting. I don't think I'm convinced that they're X-parasites, but I am convinced that there's something going on with these little guys. I definitely think that there's now more sus than I've ever thought, and I'm probably never gonna save the animals again when I play Super Metroid. I am convinced now by this theory and how you read it to me that they are not your average little alien animals, and there's something going on. Like, even if they might not be X-parasites, exactly, there's something else there. And honestly, that perked me up a little bit. The theory wasn't as bad as I expected. I was honestly expecting it to be like just nonsense and be like, okay, this is stupid. But actually, it wasn't as dumb as I thought it was going to be. So I'm glad that you took the time to check that video out and also give it to me too to hear it. I wanted to hear it from how you were going to say it to me, right? Like, hear it in your own words.
Mm-hmm.
So, and also then I didn't have to watch the YouTube video, so that was cool too. But
I will say that I think it's literally physically impossible for me not to save the animals. I think it's impossible.
But after having this information, after having watched this video, can you really truly say that? Can you say that, like, oh yeah, I'm totally saving them? Like, I don't know, man. I don't know if I can.
I still can't do it. They're just down there. Oh, actually, I forgot to mention this little piece of evidence too. So the room that you find them in Super Metroid when you save them, by the way, is also an item room, which the X are attracted to since they absorb items. So maybe.
Okay. Maybe, or maybe they just went in there because it was warm. Or something. I don't know. Maybe they
took a wrong turn getting to the lost ship.
Exactly. That's the thing too. Maybe they just show. That's the thing. Is like they might be smart at times, but other times they don't make the best decisions. Like, why are they in that room? Why didn't they just make it back to the ship on their own? Why do they need to be saved by Samus, etc.? So, yeah. But it got me thinking about Etecoons, and that in a way that I never thought I would. I never considered this possibility.
Anything to get us thinking about Metroid in these dark times is a good thing. So there you go. That was our game theory, Metroid theory show. Dak, anything you want to say before we get on out of here?
Yes, two things. First, I misspoke earlier. My other introduction to Ghosts and Goblins is Firebrand, also in Marvel vs. Capcom. And I'm mad at myself that I didn't say Firebrand, because I never used Arthur ever, but Firebrand was on multiple of my Marvel vs. Capcom 3 teams. And I forgot that Firebrand is from those games, which is what I remembered while we were talking. Firebrand is awesome. Anyone who plays Marvel out there, if you use Firebrand, you're cool. Second, the only other thing we didn't talk about today was the quote-unquote news of Retro Studios looking for a boss and AI developer, and I'm glad we didn't talk about it.
God.
I'm glad we didn't talk about it, but I just want to quickly rant about it. If first of all, the job listing was apparently posted back in April. Retro just tweeted about it recently for who knows what reason. Maybe they're just putting it out there. They want some more resumes. Maybe they just want some more for the database for future references, or, if they need more people down the line. But every time I see one of these job listings and people go, oh, this game is gonna be never coming out. It's delayed. They haven't been working on this. Like, they need this kind of, like, it is the most mind-blowing, crazy, like, the conclusions that people come to on Twitter blows my mind. If Retro is looking for a boss or AI developer in December of 2020, that doesn't mean that prior to December of 2020 or April or whatever, that they didn't have anybody working on bosses or AI in the game at all, and they're looking for their first person now. That's not what the case is. And every time I see this post, when someone says, "Oh, this game's never coming out. Oh, they're just hiring this kind of person. What have they been doing this whole time?" It doesn't grind my gears. Just makes me laugh because, like, I'm glad that I'm not this person having those thoughts in my head. Anyway, I'm glad we didn't talk about that, but I'm happy that things are going well, I hope, and that they're still hiring people, looking for people. I wish I had the skills to work on Metroid Prime 4 because that would be such a dream. I would love to have my name in the credits for that game. Maybe on Metroid Prime 7 or something like that. I'll get in there. But yeah, glad we didn't cover it. I had to say that though. And yeah, Firebrand is awesome.
I think that was a subliminal slip that we didn't cover that because I'm tired about talking about Retro Studios. But I will say, if they are not working on the Kraid boss, I don't even want. I don't even want
this is what this. Yeah, they could be hiring for Kraid. That's exactly what we need. But it's probably for Ridley.
Hashtag Kraid for Prime 4. All right, well, we are going to get out of here. We hope that you guys enjoyed some Metro talk and some just general video game talk. And we're going to be back here next week doing a deep dive into what they call Nestroids. So very much looking forward to that. We're going to have Ryan from Metro Database on here with us. Check us out over on Twitter. I am at Spateri316. Dak is DakCity_. And we are at Omega Metroid Pod. And of course, we want you to like and subscribe over on Podbean, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. Leave us a 5-star review too if you think that we have earned it. That's it. That's all. We will see you back here next week. Take care.